of the things that leaders will secretly tell me is their biggest challenge in terms of events? Well, it's this. Engagement. I recently surveyed over 100 leaders and 1 in 3 told me that this was the number one toughest thing for them. It wasn't finding the budget, not planning the whole thing, not coming up with ideas. No, it was how to, on the day, ensure that people were contributing, participating, and engaged. I'm Chloe Temple, the founder of The Ultimate Offsite, and in this episode we're diving into a little bit more of a subtle pitfall that can still kibosh engagement. Now, of course, nobody wants that. If you're going to spend your whole time pulling this whole thing together, you want them to enjoy it, right? And to participate. But do either of these scenarios sound at least the teeniest bit familiar? The first scenario is, well, have you ever had that experience where you've got a group and you're trying to get stuff out of them and it feels like you're pulling blood from a stone to try and get people to actively contribute? You might have created time in your agenda for some engagement, you've asked a question, and you just met with crickets. The other scenario is where actually you have exactly the opposite, where people have actually so much to contribute and conversations end up going off on tangents and you end up running out of time completely, and basically a lot of what you plan to do has to be parked for some future event. Now, we're going to look at how you expertly manage an agenda in the next video, but I mention it here because there's usually a combination of these two fears, often subconscious, of these kind of scenarios that can result in us falling into a really common pitfall that, combined with some of the other pitfalls that we've seen earlier, a lack of planning being one, an agenda that's misaligned to actually what you want to get out of it being another, basically means that a lot of events end up with participants just being talked at. And that's pitfall 5, being talked at. The biggest killer in team events is designing an agenda where the team just gets blasted by information. Speaker after speaker, as they basically spend a day or even a couple of hours just being talked at. And often it's us that is doing the talking. Look, I know this comes from a good place. We want to add value, we want to ensure that the team is learning something, or we need to deploy a message. But what ends up happening is that we end up spraying them with information and just hoping it's all going to sink in, or at least some of it sinks in. And another reason which drives us to do this, to just talking, to creating agendas where our team are just talked at, is because actually it can feel, when you need space for contribution, that can be harder to control. Like, I don't know how long so-and-so is going to be speaking for. I don't know how long this discussion is going to last, and therefore it can actually just feel simpler and easier to be like, okay, right, we'll get the speaker, or this person will come and talk about this, rather than actually creating space for more of a conversation or a dialogue or input. The thing is, though, no matter how interesting or important what it is that we're hearing, or what you're saying or what they're saying, by a certain point an audience basically just starts thinking, oh, I'm tired, stop talking at me. Because such a popular format for team events is this mix of work and play. Work in the morning, play in the afternoon. It's not always like that, but it often is. That might sound great in principle, but you might have caught the video on where we talked about too much mandatory fun. Well, you might be familiar already with the point around fun, but rather than taking this kind of black and white approach, mornings for passive listening, afternoon for the fun engaging part, I reckon there's such a better way to provide or make your events just way more engaging. So what can you do to ensure meaningful engagement and participation at your events? Well, here are some actionable tips. We will love a tip. Tip number 1 is to build interactivity into your agenda. Design your agenda to include interactive activities, sessions that allow people to contribute, and just allow enough space for it. The second tip is to encourage sharing. Don't just create the space for voices to be heard. Encourage it, recognise it, lead by example with what you want to be hearing. Now, one of the challenges in this is time. It's often time-consuming to hear from everyone, particularly if you've got a bigger group. And sometimes it's simply not possible. So tip number 3 is to use a concept that I learned from a facilitation training expert company, AJ and Smart, which is called Together Alone. This concept could be brought to life by simply breaking the group up into smaller sub-discussion groups before bringing it back. Or it could look like using things like this and this, post-it notes and other tools like stickers, to allow people to express their thoughts without actually physically voicing anything. The beauty of these sorts of activities is it can happen really quickly. And not only can it happen quickly, you're able to visualize themes and see opinions without having to have the backstory attached. Now, I know it does take time. Interactivity takes time, and facilitating this sort of stuff isn't exactly easy. Simple, but not necessarily easy. But if you want a great day where people don't leave exhausted, they feel valued, they feel heard, they feel part of something, then interactivity is vital. See, participation breeds commitment. It also boosts memory. Help me and I forget. Involve me and I remember. So design sessions that actually allow for active participation versus passive listening. Encourage group discussion, voting, feedback. Go and make your team events interactive and engaging. Now, I hope you found this video helpful. If you have, please like, subscribe. It's actually just one, though, in a series where we're diving into some of the pitfalls and some of the ideas to make your team events truly effective. But if you want to know which pitfalls you're most falling into or how effective really are your offsites, then I encourage you to go take a 2-minute offsite effectiveness assessment. We're basically going to work out really quickly which ones you need to focus on in order to make your next team event an absolute flying success. It'll also identify which video for you to check out next. So I would encourage you to take that. The link will be below. And yeah, if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and we will see you soon in the next video. Thank you so much for your attention and time. See you soon.